All right, and we're back at Riverbend Disc Golf Trail in Findlay, Ohio for the back nine of round one with myself, Greg, and James from Six Sided Discs. We're coming into hole one here, par 3, 199 feet. Both of us had a pretty solid first 9 holes, and you can see the wind kind of playing with the disc a little bit there. That was my K3 Berg. James is showing off a beautiful die job on a K1 Berg, or excuse me, a K1 Rico, looks like, from, I think it's Fly Nebula Dies. I apologize if I got the name wrong there. They've got some really sweet dies. And James just comes up a little bit short again. A lot of trouble with our grip out here, a lot of trouble with kind of consistent release. All right, I'm hitting low cage. And it looks like somebody either parked it or aced it because that CTP flag is right under the basket. On to hole 2, par 3, 246 feet. And I was feeling really indecisive on this tee. Couldn't decide if I wanted to go with the backhand. It is OB right of that path. So I decided, well, maybe I'll flex a forehand. And I end up throwing some type of tomahawk that doesn't tomahawk. And I'm safe, but not really where I wanted to be. James takes a nasty kick off the tree here. That actually lands right on the ice, like on the edge of the pond here, on the edge of the bank. He manages to get it out, but he's going to be throwing from the drop zone here and taking a penalty stroke. At first, this looked great, but it just... it kind of faded out of that way earlier than it seemed like it would. And so I've got my approach shot from kind of down in the weeds here. I'm just trying to put it on a little bit of anhyzer and getting it over this branch, but I didn't get it up high enough. And that is a nasty spit out there, kind of left side high. And I don't know if maybe these chains don't catch as well in the cold, but there were some pretty suspect spit outs that we saw. I'm going to pick up the par. James is going to tap in here after our card mate Rob and have to take his medicine with a double bogey. We're on to hole 3, 211 feet. This tee pad is dreadful. I throw my A1 and get an unfortunate skip and slide right into the bushes there, which is not ideal. Shout out to Dusty there in the background, who's got his bag on a sled, which is hilarious. We were following the tracks of his sled all over the course. And you may have heard in the audio there a big gust of wind as James was getting ready to throw, and it just carried his disc well past the basket. So he's got a comebacker here, pitches it up to within about 10 feet. And this is what I'm left with after that unfortunate skip and slide through the snow. Is some kind of weird low ceiling straddle putt, which under the circumstances I'm not unhappy with the execution, and I'll settle for a par. Unfortunately, pars just don't cut it on this section of the course. These are 4 consecutive really short backhand hyzer, right-hand backhand hyzer holes. And there's no excuse for, missing out these opportunities here.
Oh, my Lord.
We really ought to be getting these. And I don't know what happened if I slipped on the tee pad or something when I threw that A2, but it just went way wide right. And James with the opposite issue. Let's go just a touch early of his K1 Berg and ends up in a bush. And I'm kind of going for like a little Anheuser flex approach here because there's some low-hanging branches, so I'm going to kind of get down on a knee, get in the snow, and all my hard work. And I sky it into a twig, check the wind, and confirm that it wasn't the wind, it was just my fault. And just didn't quite commit to that, and we missed the tap in there for me, so that's just going to be a good old-fashioned bogey. James has got a really tough approach shot. He's fortunate just to get it out there for a par. And again, you know, a par is not terrible, but when you're playing against the field on this, the field is going to average under par on these holes. They're, you know, in the high 100s, in the low 200s on feet. They're not long, so you just have to execute. And unfortunately, we are not doing that right now. On to hole 5 again, another right-hand backhand hyzer shot, 190 feet. Out of his hand, James didn't like it, but it got a lot of fade and put him pretty close. So he'll have a look at the basket. If you look at my feet, the tee pads are in terrible shape. And I'm just going for a standstill so I don't slide, and put it pretty close with my Firebird, and this is looking more like it on hole 5.
Good putt.
Great putt from James. Rings up the birdie. See if I can do the same. Get in the routine here. And there's another birdie. So that feels good after a couple of rough holes.
Yep.
Another sketchy tee pad. And again, the conditions are just making it hard to get a consistent release on it. James is unhappy with that. The basket's tucked way along the left side, like after this line of trees. And I decide to take, unfortunately, a similar route, even though I'm playing from the side of the tee pad to give myself a better angle. And we both have long, open looks to the basket. And I was pretty happy with that bid. That was not far off from that distance. A little tiny little hop putt, which is also a little nerve-wracking in the snow. And James, I mean, that looked like it was going in. I was surprised it didn't hit the chains, but must have just been a little bit to the right. And I think we'll pull out a par for James and see if I can do the same. On to hole 7. This is a par 4. We've got a stiff headwind you can see and probably hear. And that just kind of turns over James's drive. Doesn't ever give it a chance to move there, to fade back. I go with my Dickerson FX2, and I have the opposite problem. The wind gets it and just pushes it left. The pars are pretty generous on this course, and you know, while the par is not really relevant to the tournament score because we're playing against the field, it still can be a psychological thing when you get a birdie or a bogey, you know, when that's what UDisc tells you. So going for another standstill. A lot of standstill shots on fairways here because, as you can see, the snow is pretty deep, and trying to get any kind of run-up was almost impossible. Both of those shots looked like they got pretty close, and then we come up here and they're not quite as close. They come at about 20 to 25, which is not my best range.
Oh, no.
And there's another cage hit. And one thing you'll probably see as you watch this round is growing frustration. You know, we're on the back 9 of our first round out in the cold, and I think the conditions are slowly starting to get to us. And certainly the score on the back 9 would reflect that, especially when the back 9 arguably has the easier holes. So we took a couple pars on a par 4, but, you know, on a 400-foot par 4, that is realistically a bogey. On to hole 8, 304 feet. This is another par 4 that's kind of tricky. The basket is way down, kind of in these trees on the right. James isn't happy with his shot, but I'm kind of going for something similar. I want to land out in the open and have an open look at the basket, and that's kind of what we both achieved. Solid approach from James. He's within circle 1, and I've got a pretty long jump putt approach, maybe 80 feet or so, and I'm just definitely not trying to throw it in, but trying to get close. And I'll take that easy tap in every day for what is, at least on the scorecard, considered a birdie. And James is going to grab one as well. So, that is always a good feeling to see green on your scorecard, even if sort of against the field it's not as good. And maybe that's like a psychological thing for us to keep in mind too for the next time we play one of these events, which we've got 2 more OWLS League events this season. OWLS is a point series. And here on hole 9, neither of us really happy with our drives. James hits an early tree. I go with the SV, and I just didn't really commit to anything, and I got lucky that I didn't hit any of those trees. James with a great little forehand pitch up there. I think that was with his rubber blend zone. Good looking disc. I tried to give that one a chance and just pulled it a little bit to the right. And this is going to bring us to the end of round 1 here with a couple of hopefully routine cleanup shots. And I'm able to convert the par. And there's that zone. We still have a couple of those in stock, and hopefully we'll have some of those on our website. We got some big changes coming to our store soon. I'll be talking about those changes in some of the upcoming videos, but here we end up at the end of round 1 with myself at 4 under and James at 2 under. We'll be back in the second round with 2 more videos soon. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.